You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
You don't know about the other side of the pyramid? The fifth side? It's called the floor, you dumbass. I just want to make sure he realizes there is a fifth side to the pyramid.
And once you open your fucking mind of undefeated goddamn fairness.
I know all of them, and I believe none of them, which makes me an expert. Hello, folks. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Cryptic Conspiracy Cult. This is your host, Chris Morrison, with two special guests. I have...
this is Captain Nunn, y'all.
Welcome back. And...
Cristy Phillips.
That's right, guys. If somebody sounds a little low, that's because you only got two mics and there's three of us, so we're trying to make it work.
Yahoo.
We were talking about Jason Aldean a while ago.
Yeah.
Talking about if we should do an outlaw country podcast.
I personally would love to do it. That's just a lot of minutia.
A lot of minutia.
I feel like
I love outlaw country and cops.
Yes. See, that's
the real conspiracy of country music.
That's Nashville country these days. It's all about being pro the law.
Yeah.
Waylon Jennings would be so upset.
I make moonshine and lick cop boots.
I mean, technically, we could make it a history thing.
We could. It's also a conspiracy about NASCAR I have rolling in my head right now about the conservatism of NASCAR. But that's just me. That's a whole new fucking episode. That's on me.
I live with a guy that builds and works on race cars for certain drivers, so that'd be a whole thing to go down as well.
Yeah, I would love to see an old NASCAR driver just talk about, oh yeah, back in the day, I put one in a cop's leg one time, went down from Wilkesboro all the way to Charlotte, and it was just like, what?
It's weird. This year I've watched so many races, or NASCAR races, and I've just kind of just embraced it at this point, just because I grew up with it. My best friend from high school was really into it, and I knew all the drivers' names and all that. Now I'm just embracing all of the NASCAR culture here in North Carolina. Yeah. It's kind of fun.
It's all trashy.
It's so trashy.
I literally ran into Casey Kane one time.
No way.
In a Sub Express in Statesville, and I didn't realize how small he was. And I realized they're all small, except for the Waltrips.
Especially Michael Waltrip.
Yeah. Well, folks, this isn't a NASCAR episode. I'm sorry. Aww. There's no cryptids in NASCAR except
Richard Petty.
Except for Richard Petty, who will live forever. The fucking Mick Jagger of goddamn NASCAR.
Yes, absolutely.
But no, we're going to continue on our mythical creatures, but this one we're going to stick to vampires, werewolves, and maybe mummies. Maybe. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Just getting, throwing all the universal, what about creatures that live in black lagoons?
Yeah, why not?
Shit
Fuck
like
it.
that.
Yeah, that's not some autoerotic kind of thing for some writer in Japan. Yeah.
Or what's his nuts?
What's his nuts?
Yes, that guy.
That guy.
Shape of Water.
Shape of Water. Oh yeah.
He basically lived out that fantasy.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro. Yeah.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, so let's get into it. Why are vampires suck and werewolves are better? Cristy.
Let's see. You have the whole idea of...
Like, if I'm in prison, I'm P90X fucking with a werewolf all the time, just lifting fucking weights. Meanwhile, this fucking jag-off Confederate soldier vampire is just like, I was in the War of Northern Aggression.
I've come to call on your daughter.
Yeah.
And
she's
subtly,
12, asshole.
And subtly, I turned the microphone toward me.
Yeah.
So here's the problem with you always bringing up the Confederate soldiers that are vampires, and my immediate desire to turn you away from True Blood.
I turned you on to that. That was my bad.
Yeah, that was your fault.
Yeah, True Blood is just basically porn, though.
Yeah, but it's got a story.
Yeah, but ignore all of that to the main character who was never a vampire to begin with, who is Lafayette, who is the best character that's ever been in True Blood.
No.
Oh, poor, sweet Lafayette.
He was amazing.
Well,
he was the one that held the whole show together.
I did enjoy Lafayette. He was very sassy.
Yes. He was the one everybody wanted to be.
But yeah, going into the whole mythos behind vampires and werewolves and whatnot, it kind of, we all know it from like the Universal monsters, but back in the day, before the moving pictures and such, this was like a real thing for people. A cultural thing, especially the vampire part. The werewolves thing was more Eastern European, around Germany and Ukraine and stuff. But like back in the day, it was, I need to make sure this motherfucker's dead before I put him in the ground because they might come and eat my fucking children.
Yeah.
That was the cool story about vampires all the time.
So I haven't heard a lot about the cultural lore of the vampires. I've listened and read more about the werewolf. I guess maybe not phenomenon or like the stories of like how people like misjudge, people that were just freaking out just in the streets and just acting just ravenous and just getting that compared or getting that confused with the idea of it being a wolf person.
Yeah, so the backstory of werewolves is actually like a Christian mythos.
Okay.
For a very long time, it was a curse by God that people were shunned away from the community, and that at some point they've turned into rabid, vicious animals that would come and haunt the community. But it changes over time. Mainly it was werewolves, and then it was, hey, this woman is living out in a shack, so she's a witch. But witch and werewolf were kind of interchangeable through a lot of European cultures all over the fucking place, because you think about some of these villages are so far apart. You hear one thing about, village A over here and village B over here has got some fucking problems, and it's like, well, we just had someone from village B come by. We need to get rid of this motherfucker.
Well, there's that religious crossover as well with, the werewolf is, a curse, right? Mm-hmm. And witches are, responsible for curses or know how to control that kind of magic, that kind of energy. So all that's kind of interchangeable, probably with vampires as well.
Yeah. But with, vampires kind of skyrocketed out of fucking nowhere, out of the belief that the dead shall rise again. We grew up in, churches and stuff, and part of Revelations was, the dead will rise again, But for back then, it was a different kind of thing.
Talking about Jesus and the Addams Family music goes on.
But with stuff like that, you had people fearing that the dead were going to come back again. I think also another part of that was people kind of slipping into a coma when they got sick. Right. And then banging on the goddamn coffin while they're being buried. Like, please stop. Please, love of God, fucking stop.
That's where we get one of my favorite things, where when somebody would die, they would leave a hole in the top of the coffin and then tie a rope around your toe, and then put a bell out, and people would just be walking through the cemetery and then all of a sudden hear a bell. Yeah. And they would have to try to dig you out. Yeah. And it's like, there's no way.
And that is where we get the term dead ringers.
Yeah, and Saved by the Bell. Zach Morris is dead.
Yes.
Zach Morris is dead in the ground. We buried him deep. But there's actually like...
Good riddance.
There's a perfect... Aaron Mahnke, the guy who wrote the CRYPTID documentary, does a radio show called Lore, where he delves deep into like these kind of stories where people are buried alive, and that's why we have these older cemeteries with cages wrapped around the fucking top of the grave. So not for just grave diggers, but for graves to open the fuck up and try to kill us. There is one horrific story out of Massachusetts, though. A girl had got sick, young lady, probably like 16, 17 years old, and she fell into a coma. They assumed she was dead because fuck it, why not? And they buried her. And some kids were in the cemetery and heard screaming from the grave and told people, and they're like, these fucking kids are assholes, lying little motherfuckers. And they didn't say anything till one grave guy, was one of the cemetery guys, was like, okay, let's crack her up and let's see what's in there. And by the time they got to her, there was blood everywhere in the coffin, and she had scratched her fucking neck open because she was suffocating, because instinctually when we choke, we go for our neck. And something in her brain is like, open your fucking throat and get some oxygen. And she ripped her own fucking neck open just to get more oxygen. But she's like, there's scratch marks on the fucking, like the top of the coffin and stuff like that. It was brutal. And that's when a lot of New England mainly started incorporating bells, cages. And that's kind of where we get a Jewish tradition where we leave the body out for a little while. The Jewish tradition is 24 hours called sitting Shiva, where you sit with the body for 24 hours, mainly to make sure it's dead.
Right.
Mainly to make sure. But we turned that into what's called a wake. And we wait to see if they wake the fuck up.
Were they paranoid about the living dead, say, the way We Picture the Living Dead currently, where it's a
Like
zombie. Yeah.
Not so much. So the zombie tradition actually comes from the Caribbean islands through
Okay.
voodoo and hoodoo and all that. And there's a great, I think it's called The Serpent in the Rainbow. It's a great fucking horror movie about zombies and people coming out of the grave and shit. It was about this voodoo woman who places a curse on some poor fuck, and people are coming out of the graves and shit. So that, like, the zombie part is from that culture, which is a kind of a French and English and Caribbean islanders version of Christianity. It's big in New Orleans,
Okay.
especially hoodoo. You have those little kind of runoffs of witchcraft and like Christianity mixed together. In Mexico, you have De los Muertos and stuff like that. People who worship the dead, just stuff like that. But the whole zombie part just came much later after the Caribbean islands kind of opened up themselves to other cultures rolling in.
I think Pirates of the Caribbean kind of did a thing with that in one of the movies where they had Caribbean zombies, if you will, or the undead. And, well, I guess with sailor traditions, there's that in all of that lore as well.
Well, that was a big thing. Like we'll cover like on a pirates thing, but a big thing was that is Davy Jones's locker. Like that's where pirates go to die. This is your soul gets sent to is a bottomless hellscape in the ocean, where probably a serpent shows up or a kraken.
And a guy who likes to add syllables will start yelling at you.
Yeah. It's like, oh God, what an asshole.
Well, one of the things with the hoodoo stuff, I know we're always throwing movies at y'all. One of my favorite movies that talks about it is The Skeleton Key.
Oh. That's such a weird fucking movie.
But it's a great movie.
Yeah, so she's just out of nowhere, but it's like, I'm going to be a white lady. She gets possessed. Spoiler alert for a movie that came out, 2005?
It's also a remake.
Yeah, it's also a remake. But, like, they were being haunted by, former slaves?
Well, the idea is they had, I don't know what I would call it, but soul jumped.
Yeah.
Body jumped so many times. But it was also the idea of hoodoo won't bother you if you don't believe in it. If you don't accept it and you don't think it'll bother you, then it won't bother you. But if you put weight to it, it will.
Yeah.
And you slowly get to watch
It's like
Kate
a Ouija
Hudson.
board.
Yeah, you slowly get to watch Kate Hudson be like, well, this little bit's not going to bother me. And if I do this part, it's not going to be a thing. And then she just keeps building and building and building and building until you literally watch her tear a spell out of a spell book and actually do one of these things.
Yeah.
And then it's just the end of the world for her.
White ladies and witchcraft, I'll tell you what.
You can't trust them, though. Maybe just a little bit.
Just like salt on your eggs, just a little bit, just a pinch. Just a little pinch. But like going back to like Eastern Europe and stuff, recently last year, at the tail end of last year, they recently dug up a grave by accident. Whatever. It was in Poland, and it was the body of a woman, and you've seen a hand scythe, like a little sickle, little hand scythe.
Yeah.
In the grave, it was where her neck would be.
Oh, my God.
Just in case she decided to hop up out of the grave as a vampire, her head would come off.
Oh, my God.
But, like, that's an old fucking tradition that we heard about, and now we see actual evidence of them, like, putting, like, farm tools in a grave of a woman just so she don't come back to life and try to murder us in her sleep. But with the vampires, a lot of it comes back around because it just dies out in the 1500s and the 1600s during the plague. It just dies out very quickly. But as soon as the United States starts getting, their legs in New England, that's when people were like, well, let's see what happens to a body. Let's do some Grey's Anatomy shit, which is, where that comes from. Let's crack open some people while they're dead and see what shit looks like in there. And people were digging up children's bodies and, like, not understanding decomposition worth a fuck and then blaming it on vampirism and all this shit. Like, when you die, your skin recedes. So it makes it look like your fingernails and hair and teeth get longer. That's because your body is decaying and you're it's not your fingernails don't grow when you die. Nothing grows when you die. You just die.
The shriveled up kind of.
But like the skin on your fingers, because there's no muscles in your fingers, it's all tendons. The skin recedes, so your fingernails look like they grow. Your head shrinks after you're dead because it's decomposing, so your hair gets longer. It looks like it's growing, and then that's like the mouth itself. The canines protrude further because they're getting loose because you're fucking dead.
Right.
So obviously Timmy's a vampire, and we need to burn him. And that's actually an actual story. A man with a wife, I think it was like $2 and a son, just ravaged by TB, tuberculosis. He watched them all die one by one, and then some assholes, gravedigger preacher man's like, we got to dig them up and burn them. And what? Because they're active vampire hunters.
So where did the burning tradition come from? Like they leave the bodies out to make sure that they're dead, but you also have this a lot of burn the bodies in the lore too, because that's the only way to say get rid of a vampire, get rid of a werewolf, other than a silver bullet or like a cross or like anything.
So a lot of these are from a book called the Malbec, which is like an old like demon hunter book. It's written around the time King James wrote his version of the Bible. King James wrote a demon book.
I did not know this.
It was the second most popular book of all time for a while. So you would have a Bible, and then you would have a demonology book written by King James. And for those who don't know, King James is the son of Mary, Queen of Scots. Also, Bloody Mary, Queen of Scots, who was really good at this one thing called burning Catholics.
Yes.
Yes, he was.
A fire sale, if you will.
and wrote demon paraphernalia. Before Anton LaVey, there was King James.
There was King James, and he wrote a whole Bible. I love that Gangs of New York, where they're talking about, where he's like yelling at Leonardo DiCaprio, who can't read. He's just like, you've never heard of Bill Shakespeare? He wrote the King James Bible. And it's just like, God damn, you stupid motherfucker.
I haven't watched that movie in a minute.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. It's like 4 hours long.
It is.
It's an anthology of New York and why we should shoot them.
What's his name?
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis would be probably a sick vampire in movies.
Yeah. I think Daniel Day-Lewis is a vampire. No, it's Gary Oldman.
Okay.
Gary Oldman was the shit.
Yes, he was an amazing Dracula.
He was a great Dracula. That is a weird fucking movie, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
But go back to vampires. They're like a big part of the lore came from the United States. All the add-on stuff. We still have like the European culture, and we talked about it a long time ago in an episode. Like, how do you tell horror? And a good example is like through the ages, what scares people. And the United States is the king of horror when it comes to like just in film and television. But one of the first things that were like horror movies were those people from over there, from the old countries where we came from.
Right.
Because America is now filled with generations of Italians, of Scots, Irish, British, Germans. Every walk of life is now second or third generation by the time movies come out. So what's best scary is like, let's talk about those people that you guys came from and bring them over as something scary, and then it morphs into people who survived war. That's where we get sideshow freaks and why they're fucking scary, and then it goes into aliens because we're talking about the fucking future now. So like sci-fi gets big as horror, but this is the first, like, just in film and television, this is the apex of horror and thrillers, because we can tell a fantastical story with something that's not real.
And they've been doing that since day one too.
The first moving picture from the Edison Nickelodeon theaters was Frankenstein's Monster. It was panned. Nobody liked it. It scared the fuck out of probably a lot of people. But that's technically the first movie, and you can still watch it today on YouTube. But it's part of the Edison film company, basically before film company.
The same one that has, like, say, Valley of the Dinosaurs, or not Valley of the Dinosaurs, the one that the guy that did King Kong did.
Like Bertot Gordon and all them.
Yeah, I can't think what the name of it is, but you know what I'm talking about.
But like that's a whole different, like that's the next genre, fantastical creatures, who are deep in the jungle. Because fun fact, people didn't know gorillas existed until 1870.
Yep.
So like, think about that for a second. They were technically a cryptid.
Yes.
Gorillas in the mist. Like Jane Goodall siding with these motherfuckers weren't real.
Yeah.
Not long ago.
Gorillas were up there with the Mothman, and
Abraham Lincoln died not knowing gorillas existed. Think about that.
And that's a shame.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of shame about Lincoln.
That's a whole other episode.
That's a whole episode. I have a whole thing about why he's on the 5. And the penny. And why we should get rid of the penny. But that's just me.
History we forgot. Streaming now.
Streaming now. But Yeah, when we do our 17-part, 1-hour episode deep dive into Lincoln and why he's still alive.
Please have me back on for the Andrew Jackson episode.
Pull out your 20s, folks. There's a reason he's fucking on it.
And then you'll get my opinion of why he should not be on it.
Yeah, well, everybody has an opinion. That's why we do podcasts. To get these opinions out before we explode.
Yep, and this is why you get things thrown at you on our podcast.
She threw something at me.
I did.
You can hear that episode very soon.
Wow, that's mean.
Yeah, it's out.
It's
the
out,
one
it's out.
when I threw something at you, it's out.
Yeah. So
Did he earn that?
Yes, he did. He was talking trash about the Irish,
oh,
and I'm half Irish.
well, fucking drop a potato sack for me then. Jesus.
You're within arm's reach.
Yeah, and I got a shamrock on my fucking arm. Who gives a fuck?
I'll hit you right in the middle of it then.
But well, going to the Irish, there's actually a big part of their culture when it comes to anthropomorphism, which is anthropomorphism, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's the transition of humans into animals.
Right.
That's part of the Celtic, sub-religion, which goes into paganism, which is riddled throughout Scandinavia, which is Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, those pesky little Germans to the south. But you were talking about cremation. A lot of that came from them.
Yep.
Okay.
So Christianity during the make-em-up times around 200 AD had to incorporate a lot of other people's stuff to make everybody real comfortable with Christianity.
Right.
Another part of that is incorporating, traditions and holidays. Why do we have Christmas trees? Well, that's a pagan thing. Why do we celebrate a bunny who lays eggs on Easter? Well, that's a pagan thing. Why do we celebrate, Jesus' birthday basically in December? Because it's the winter solstice. For those pagans, that was like right before shit hit the fan. Like as soon as the winter solstice started and spring started, it's really bad because you're eating all the fucking reserves during the winter, and spring is when a lot of people died. And then you have a problem with disease in the spring because now it's hot enough for the spring to catch disease in the air. So you need to burn the bodies to get rid of the disease. Early Catholics, were against cremation for a very long time. You couldn't ascend to heaven if you were cremated. But the Protestants agreed with it permanently, especially in the early days of Martin Luther in Amsterdam, where Baptists came from. Big proponents of, we need to burn all these bodies because I don't want to get sick and die.
Right. It's like, I love how like the Protestants in general, just like Methodists in particular, could just be like,
Did I catch you singing, motherfucker? Did I catch you fucking singing? Not in my Methodist church.
I don't know, man. Methodist people love to sing.
But early Methodists.
I don't know about the early Methodists.
Fun fact: Brigham Young, before he was the king of fucking Mormons, was a Methodist and was beat for humming a song. So Methodists back in the day hated fucking music.
Well, fuck Brigham Young.
BYU. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't like the fucking Big 12, you fucking pussy.
I guess not.
So this is a moment when I have to interject about a story from one of my students last year. We went over Manifest Destiny, and we talked about Brigham Young.
How awesome it is.
Eye roll. And one of my students said, imagine carrying a child in your womb for 9 months just to name them Brigham. My entire class got quiet, and then all of a sudden everybody busted out laughing, including me. And I said, I can't. Student said, I wouldn't. Student said, that is a punishable offense right there.
I gotta say, we need to bring back some of the older names for people because some of these new names fucking suck. If I see one more Caitlin spelled wrong, with that 1 in 26 different spellings of the word Caitlin, I'm gonna lose my shit.
Caitlin with the K.
Caitlin with the C. There's like 4 vowels in there. We got rid of the I's and just replaced them with Y's.
I was going to say, if they end with a Y, what do you do?
Yeah, it was like one book I read, which is a great one about Manifest Destiny, was The Indifferent Stars Above, which is about the Donner Party traveling across the United States. But it also talks about Mormons and how they meet them and the weird fucking names they had, and a whole chapter about shovels and the different types of shovels. But like werewolves, you had brought up the silver bullet.
Yes,
the silver bullet. So the silver bullet comes along not because of guns. It came because of silver tipped arrows, silver knives, and stuff like that. But those were also seen as like holy instruments anyway.
Right.
So like even back in the early lore of vampires, you could stab a vampire with a silver and it'd kill it too. Like But vampires weren't seen as like this disease that transfers to people. It was people who have lost God, basically, who've been shunned by their God, and they became vampires.
Right. But it doesn't feel like with the vampires, it's like there's not that host element like that's like, say, the werewolf story does, where it's like more of a virus infecting the human psyche and turning it into a beast or whatever. Vampire doesn't really have that. It's just one guy, biting, its victims, or the victim willingly becoming a vampire. It's like that. It's that different kind of origin.
But with werewolves,
I tried.
With werewolves, it's always the bite.
Yeah.
And the transition.
Yeah, they both have the bite, but it's weird where it's like the infections part of it still.
But that comes from just the biting part comes from back in the day when people would get bit by dogs.
Yeah.
And turn rabid. For no fucking reason, like a form of rabies for the human side. Like have you ever seen what happens to a person when they get rabies, like a human being?
I can't say I've seen it on film or anything like that.
They basically starve to death, but they go fucking nuts right before they do it. Because fun fact about rabies affects certain parts of the brain, and slowly kills you by forcing you to be afraid of things that you need to live, like water. A fun fact: if you think a dog has rabies, spray it with water and see what happens. Because if it's scared, like legitimately fucking scared, and starts showing its goddamn teeth, it's got rabies. You don't have to cut off its head like they used to, but that's something that it does. Like it affects a part of the brain that needs sustenance. So people end up basically burning from the inside out because they're burning calories so fucking fast, and their mind's rushing, and they kind of just have a fever and starve to death. But if this is the fucking 1500s, and I come out of the fucking woods, bare my fucking teeth, frothing at the mouth, I look like a dog, because I've lived in the fucking woods by my fucking self. That's kind of an easy way of saying, like, how did they get to that point? Which is really fun when you talk about cryptids and stuff. Like, why does the Mothman exist? Well, it doesn't. But we saw something in the woods and we called it a Mothman, or Bigfoot, or the Loch Ness Monster, or the cat fox of Tennessee, which is we talked about that a long time ago.
Yeah.
But we just associate that because it makes sense to us at the moment. Go ahead.
I think the vampire thing came along because blood was such a big deal back then, because you had to be, which I've never understood the thing about bloodletting. They thought you could have too much blood, so they would put leeches on you and do all that kind of thing.
They think your blood was poisonous. Your blood was killing you.
Yeah.
And in a way, bloodletting worked great if you had like an abscess or bloodletting is still used today, but in a different type of thing. People still use bloodletting for leeches.
Yeah.
But there is a medical condition that you need to do that for. I can't pronounce it. But back in the day, it's just like, oh, I got the sniffles. Put leeches on her face.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's fucking stupid. But we know this because we're enlightened. And 20,000 years from now, we're going to be dumber than shit because they're going to look back at this podcast, I hope, somewhere in space, and realize, wow, these three fucks are idiots. Bloodletting was right the whole fucking time.
Yeah, probably. But I think that's where it came from to begin with, is because blood was so important, and they actually believed that blood was the most important thing in the body.
Yeah.
They thought that was more important than breathing. They thought that was more important than food. They thought that was more important than everything else. So they had to have a creature or a disease or whatever that would take that from you. Well, then, one of the things that I looked up when I got into Anne Rice and all that stuff, I actually looked up things you could do to combat vampires at your house. One of my favorite things that people would do is take cargo fishing nets and tie them in knots and put them near the entrances of their houses, because they said the vampires would come to your house, and to keep from coming in your house, they would be so distracted by sitting down and untying these intricate knots that they would leave you alone.
OCD is the
true one weakness.
The true villainy of fucking vampires. It's like not, oh, he invited me in, garlic, all the crucifix. No, it's like, is that string? God damn it! I'm coming, bitch. I'm
like
coming.
A cat.
I'll be in there no fucking time. I'm coming right in that fucking cabin. I'll be right there, and he's just like whittling away at a fucking knot, and he's just like, fucking Jesus.
He tied it this way.
Damn it. You know, I used to be a fisherman. just blatant fucking hate for just like unorganized bullshit. Just throw some Russian dolls and just throw them all over the place.
It's like been alive for 500 years and shit's still happening.
Bitches still be leaving messes and shit. But
Nothing ever changes.
I think what I love about the American vampire stories are that the big one doesn't come from the United States. The main vampire is from over there, that other place, and it somehow got here and infected everyone.
Was it always Transylvania or that area of Europe?
So when it comes to Dracula, the king shit about everything, Dracula was a real person. He lived in Transylvania, but he was a warlord.
Oh.
No, more than anything. But some have equated it's Ivan the not Ivan the Terrible,
the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler, Vladimir. The dragon. That's what they called him. That was his real moniker, the dragon. Fun fact: he kept Muslims from invading Europe because of where he was in Transylvania. They made it through a passage. They took through Turkey, through his area. He didn't like that, so he impaled them on spikes as a warning. But other than that, he's just a regular guy.
Yeah.
Other than been really cool about that one thing. Who you got to think about that. Hey, what are you known for? I'm Saint John. I'm Saint John the Divine. I wrote the Revelations. It's like, oh, what did you do? Oh, I'm Peter. I'm the Saint Peter. It's like all these other people have these easy names. What's your name? My name is Vlad. Oh man, what you? Oh, Vlad, what? What do you do? I'm Vlad the Impaler. Oh, that sounds interesting. What do you do? I put spears through people's asses that go through their mouths, and then I plant them like a flag. Okay, next. Let's go to the next person.
Next.
Hey, I'm Jimmy Werewolf. How you doing? I'm from Brooklyn. I got bit by what I thought was a dog.
But
yeah, fuck Brooklyn.
Now I'm over here in Romania. What are you doing?
I'm over here in fucking Frankfurt trying to get some, you know what I'm saying? All these Nazis around, so I gotta do what I gotta do.
There was a werewolf walking around in London and his hair was perfect.
I would love a Quentin Tarantino movie just going back to like the Inglourious Bastards, and you have like the Bear Jew and all his and the Aldo Rain and all them like fucking shit up, but there's one guy, Joey from Brooklyn, who's just like knee deep in the shit, just slaughtering Nazis from the Rhine all the way to Russia, and he's just a one-man army, and it's just like the Nazis are always in my fucking way. Like I would love a comedy. A comedy was like Chris Pratt, fucking ugly shit. Get Mario on the fucking job.
Mississippi Queen plays in the background. Now this summer.
Yes.
Oh, it's all just AC/DC or REO Speedway. Take it on the run, baby.
These Nazis will not know what's coming.
Shake the thrill. And it's just like the machine gun flamethrower.
Quentin Tarantino in his next to last movie.
Fuck it. He's just like, you know what? I'm just gonna make schlock. That's for the rest of my fucking life. I'm gonna make my masterpiece that's coming up for the next 50 years. I'm just gonna make fucking schlock for fucking ABC.
And I can already hear how my phone's gonna ring. It's going to ring the Justified theme song, which is Chris's ringtone. And I might answer the phone, and he's going to go, Cristy! Open your text messages! You got to watch this video! We got to go to the movie theater!
That started back up recently, Justified.
I've started watching that too.
It's fun.
I like
the bad guy.
I do too.
The bad guy's really good. He was the bad guy from Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's scary as fuck.
He's in fucking Narcos and all that.
Yeah.
Great casting.
I loved him in Narcos, the most crooked white guy in all of Colombia.
And the guy from fucking what is it? With Roddy Piper, They Live is the judge in the first episode.
David.
Yeah, Keith David.
I love that's your reference for Keith David.
Live,
and not the narrator of City Confidential,
or like
because that's my reference,
or like Rick and Morty, Bob's Burgers, Family Guy,
every voice actor,
every animation,
Princess and the Frog.
Yeah, not my bag. I think Keith David would have been great voice acted in Pocahontas as the chief. I don't trust those white motherfuckers over there. Keith David.
You gotta say it like this.
Yeah.
It's very, 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 very well spoken. I don't know.
What the fuck is wrong with you? But
Keith David is Dracula.
Keith David is Blackula. Oh, you want to talk a pull? Let's talk some pull. But in early movies, we're all fans of horror movies, especially me and Cristy. We talk about horror movies all the time. When you first get like the Bela Lugosi vampires and stuff, it's straight from the book. Mm-hmm. It's as close as the book you can do. with those old Universal stories, just like Phantom of the Opera, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, which is the first sci-fi horror genre, like first sci-fi book technically, with Mary Shelley doing coke with Lord Byron.
I was gonna say written by a teenager,
written by a fucking teenager. I've heard some different versions of how that book was written. I'm not saying she didn't write it, but I'm saying something might have happened to her while she was up there hanging out with those motherfuckers writing that book.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure she saw a dead body that got zapped a little too much and it started running around. I'm just saying that might have been a possibility.
Why is every origin story just
a villain story?
Yeah, it just gets ruined.
It's ruined. But with the Bela Lugosi Universals, it's very simple. Mm-hmm. Dracula lives in a castle. He's got 3 bitches on the side. He's talking to a priest who really wants to fucking murder him. And then the vampire hunter shows up and puts him down. And that's the great, 3-act, Shakespeare, villain, 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 kill, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, good versus evil.
Good versus evil, black and white. That's as simple as that. And then we have the other one that Cristy likes, Nosferatu, which is, I'm pretty sure, as of today, I would write it as the horrors of radiation poisoning. The Chernobyl story before Chernobyl.
I can't help it. The Nosferatu one's hilarious. The creepy guy shows up.
This junky looking motherfucker.
He gets on the boat.
I work third shift.
He sneaks onto the boat.
Yeah.
And then he kills everybody on the boat, including all the rats. And the boat shows up, and everybody's like, how odd. An empty boat. We should leave the empty boat exactly where it is and not touch it until dark. And then he comes out of the boat. And then he shows up at random girl's house and kills random girl. The end. But I promise you, everybody has had that Nosferatu moment where you've all of a sudden snuck out of your room in the middle of the night to go to the refrigerator, and you snuck down the stairs or up the stairs exactly like that.
Yeah. But what I love is, we take the Nosferatu story of him on a ship, and then we take the Bram Stoker Dracula story, where he's basically living in Transylvania, and then they meld it together into kind of a cohesive story. A great example was the Netflix series Dracula, which I kind of liked because by the time episode 3 shows up, he's already on the Demeter, which is the original boat that he sneaks onto. Fun fact, there's a movie coming out called The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
I was going to say, and the Dracula in that one looks sick.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's got that. It looks like a beast. It looks like a monster, which I kind of enjoy. It's fun having a vampire look like a human, kind of deceiving. And the Dracula series on Netflix, it looks great because he is kind of fucking creepy. I invited all these people on this ship because I'm going to eat them, and they don't know why they're here, which makes it even more fun. It's a fucking lottery of who's the last one standing. And I got this bitch with me. She's really clever, but I gotta keep her in my pocket because she might murder me.
I had no idea about this series.
It was fantastic. It was I think 3 or 4 episodes. It was very short.
Yeah, it's the same people that did Sherlock.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What was cool was the billboard in Los Angeles, when it showed, it had all these stakes coming out of a billboard, and as the sun went down, the stakes made the shadow of him with his mouth open with fangs and shit. So it was a cool shadow effect you could see, kind of like what happened when they released the Diablo 4 poster in New York, and then all that bad shit happened in New York with the forest fires. And so for a good solid 2 days, it was red and orange outside, and there's this giant Diablo poster billboard in New York that says "Welcome to Hell." It's
Jesus.
It is a picture of Lilith, the demon from Diablo. It is just fucking hitting the fucking notch on the goddamn billboard game. You hit the perfect time to put that motherfucker up. Hell comes to New York. That's what it said. Hell comes to New York, and then the sky turns orange because the forest fires. Just fucking Cannibal Corpse playing in the background.
There's a lot of Dracula right now.
Yeah.
In pop culture. Not a lot of werewolves right now.
No, werewolves, they get kind of thrown under the bus because they're these dirty homeless people that just turn into wolves. They're not liked. It's always a homeless guy or some poor teenager who wants to play basketball.
Yeah.
There's a Netflix, there's a Black Mirror episode on Netflix that on this current season where it looks like the victim's going to be I guess like die in her sleep or something like that. The twist in the episode is that she becomes a werewolf, and that's like the only thing I've seen lately.
Yeah.
That has any of that kind of lore. Because the last one I can remember from recent memory was probably Underworld with the Lycans.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times we're not going to see a good werewolf movie anymore because they hit a fucking grand slam with 2 movies back in the day, which was The Howling and American Werewolf in London. Those 2 movies are so fucking perfect telling the werewolf story. You can't make one better. Unless Christopher Nolan does it.
I was going to say, well, part of it, too, is that those movies, the big claim to fame to those movies is the transformation themes themselves, which are really the effects are the shining moments of movies like that, as opposed to, I'd say, more so than the story itself half the time.
When his hands are changing and his face is, like, especially in The Howling, The Howling does it really well, but American Werewolf in London went over the top because you hear the bones snap and, like, just that... And the nails are getting longer. The hair's actually underneath the skin, which is part of the werewolf mythos, was that you shed your skin and underneath is the wolf. Yeah. And then you just turn back into a human, kind of like the Hulk. But underneath, and that's kind of like the scary thing about a werewolf was, deep down, that motherfucker's a monster, and he's going to fuck your shit up. Kind of like the Undertaker. That's all I picture, the Undertaker.
2010's Undertaker or...
late 1990s. Back when he was cool.
Well, one of the things that I like about it is it's...
That they play basketball?
Sure!
Ride surfing on top of vans and shit.
One of the things I like about it is...
Take it on the road, baby!
One of the things I like is that they've been able to take these legends and turn them so much on their head. Because the movies have turned them, the TV shows have turned them, because I am such a Supernatural fan. Yeah. Because I have got to see them turn it around so much. And
DJ Qualls is the next werewolf.
Yes! He did such a good job.
Yeah, he's still kicking.
Yep.
I could see that.
Yeah, he does a perfect job.
He did a great job. And one of the first times I saw, like, the werewolf thing in Supernatural, it was a skinwalker, but close. And the way they did it was really cool. Of course, I will admit I did not watch the last, I think, 3 seasons of Supernatural, but anybody who's watched Supernatural would understand why. When they did the vampires thing, I'm like, oh god, they're either going to stick directly to the OG vampire thing, or they're going to completely turn it on its head, and they completely turned it on its head, which I love. Sometimes, if they stick too close to the original vampire thing, it's too much.
Well, that's another thing, too, is like, what is the original vampire story? You know, how far back we going with this legend? Is it the Christian mythos of demons that are turning someone into a vampire? Is it the actual man, Vlad the Impaler? Is it the Americanized version? You know, if you keep evolving the story, the origin kind of gets mixed out.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why that's one of the many reasons I hate Twilight.
Oh yeah, the twinkly crackheads.
Yeah, that's one of the many reasons I hate
super
Twilight.
Strength, and he twinkles in the daylight.
And they're teenagers
forever.
God, I couldn't imagine being a teenager.
I remember watching that for the first time. I was at the beach. It was on television. I was just I got sick, and I just had to stay in the hotel room, and that was on. So I decided to see what all the hype was about. God, I could understand why Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart hated making those movies because they look dumber than fuck.
It's like, that's one series that I missed out on. You're good. Fortunately,
you're good. You're so fucking good. There's so much more lore when it comes to like other fantasy tales that, like, if you're, it is a young adult novel.
Yes,
it's a series of young adult novels, and they can be hit or miss. They can go off the rails by the third book, kind of like the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games could have just been 2 books.
Well, think about that time period, too, with Twilight coming out. You had True Blood at the same time as well for the adults. And you had the Vampire Diaries on CW.
Yeah,
and
the originals and all those things. Because Supernatural really kicked it out of the park because that's when the CW started getting fucking massive with Smallville. And it's just like, hey, let's Clark Kent. And what's the first image of Clark Kent? He's on a fucking cross with an S painted on his fucking chest. But that was the poster image of that show. And then when you watch the show,
I don't remember this.
Oh, first episode of Smallville, Clark Kent gets his shit rocked because he falls in love with this fucking girl who's wearing literally his weakness on her fucking necklace. and the jocks just beat the shit out of him and put that necklace on his neck and hang his ass in a goddamn cornfield to make it literally an allegory for Jesus.
That's fucking intense.
And then he almost murders them every season. Like he almost murders half the town every season. I had a great friend in high school named Curtis who fucking loved that show, and he told me about Supernatural back then. I didn't watch it, but we'd watch about Smallville. And then there was one episode they wrote where Clark Kent kind of goes off the fucking rails to what he should have done, where he this is kind of off topic,
right?
A girl he liked who was like him, you know, some super powered freak, gets murdered by a guy who turns himself into sand. So you know what Clark does? Superman does.
What does confused Superman do?
You just killed my girlfriend, you piece of shit. He waits for him to turn into sand, and he uses his heat vision to turn him to glass, and then breaks him.
Man,
He murders another metahuman just because. And the whole show, this is like season 3. I'm like, Curtis, if he doesn't murder the rest of the goddamn villains in this show, it's going to be dumb as fuck. Because he should. Every villain can be murdered by this goddamn hormone-addicted teenager.
I was going to say, teenage, confused Superman, is he more scary than
He plays football.
Return of the Dark Knight Superman?
He plays football one episode and almost goes through a motherfucker like the boys. You remember that? You remember the boys? Where he goes through a motherfucker?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He almost does that playing football because he tripped.
God.
Can you imagine?
I want to watch this show now.
Yeah, it was a fun show. It's campy as fuck.
It is.
Just like Supernatural was in the first few seasons before they added a better soundtrack later on.
It was Allison Mack, too, right?
Yeah, back before she went nuts and was part of a sex cult.
Nexium.
Yeah.
That should be its whole
She's
episode.
Out, hey, she's out and about.
I know. She just got out, too.
Well, going into the cult thing real quick. She's loose and Leslie Van Houten's loose.
Holy shit.
They turned that bitch loose from 1971. Yeah. She found Jesus.
They're going to Miami and hanging out with OJ.
I remember you messaged me, and I was just like, oh, man, I hope she doesn't lose Jesus because she'll go off the fucking rails.
Oh, yeah. Jesus helped her ass.
Yeah. But, cults actually kind of play a big part in, like, some of these storytellings because a lot of it is the satanic panic from back in the day, especially in the early 1600s in America, where you have people being told they're witches, that could be a whole episode on its own, but witches play a big part in the story of vampirism and werewolves, or lycanthropy, that stupid fucking nerd word. It's werewolves, guys. You don't have to make it scientific. You don't. These are fantasy creatures, okay? Like, that's literally how you sign it. And it is just so fucking dumb. Because you got people that are really murdered. There are people who are being burned alive because someone said, she turns into a dog at night. It's like, no, asshole. You wanted her land. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all you wanted.
Hey, you're still a dog. Well, I got better.
I got better.
Yes.
Yeah, repent so we can murder you faster. It's like, you guys are really playing fast and loose with the rules. I would love to go back in time with a gun and kind of, equalize everything a little bit. This goes into our time travel theory of why we shouldn't be allowed to do this.
No.
Because I have tattoos and I'm too tall.
I want to see this series, Chris Morrison, Time Detective.
Just call it Outlander just to fuck Showtime out of that title. Outlander? What? Fucking what? Like Arthur Miller wrote The Crucible. Me and you are big fans of that.
Yes.
But in real time, like real talk, if you go back to, Salem, Massachusetts back in the day, and like if someone even walked up on me, Charles Corey called you a witch, where the fuck is he? Let me talk to him. I'll talk to him right goddamn now. We'll go behind the shed, have a little fucking talk, and I'll thump his fucking skull for him.
Excuse me, did you just talk back to me?
Yeah, because it's so easy to kill you.
He's freshly colonial, like the British accent is still
I remember
fresh.
I brought that up in history class one day when they're talking about how basically soldiers would come and just take a house. What? Mm-hmm. They have how? Like, I'm thinking in my mind nowadays, like I always have that, you're always constantly thinking about, if a guy came up to my house with a gun that shot one shot and it took him 15 minutes to load it, I'm going to fuck his skull because I'm going to literally, where's this motherfucker?
No, they're going to come with torches and then burn the shit.
Yeah, but it kind of it makes me think why like The Sopranos doesn't actually work with like exploitation and stuff like that. Oh, we're gonna come back beat your ass if you don't pay it. Please, come back and throw you in the fucking oven. Make you the next day special. This is why the Irish didn't get bullied by fucking Italians in Boston, because they fucking took their fucking teeth out one by one.
So you know what? It's like they only have like some pulp in them.
Yeah.
That's what makes it taste better.
Yeah. The weird crime of, what is it? It's not exploitation. What is it? Where you threaten somebody for money or profit. I forget what the crime is. It was in our fucking handbook in high school. We couldn't do that.
Extortion?
Extortion. Extortion is the dumbest crime. It's literally a bully. That's all it is. And that's what the witch crimes are. It's extortion. Hey, if you don't give me your land, I'm going to call you a witch. And you're going to get got. Or I'm going to call you a vampire. I'm going to call you a fucking werewolf. And I'm just like, why is there not more stories of these people getting their shit knocked in? Like...
Because like the identify as the witch is like, well, I can't give that up, so...
Yeah. And you know what's funny? There's stories of real witches. Of actual witches in America who are doing this kind of shit for money.
Right now they're just making Instagram stories and selling crystals.
ASMR, selling Sephora and shit like that. But like back in the day, before, even when the Puritans were here, you had that one person out in the woods who would like make poultices and medicine, and then one thing led to a fucking another, and now they're dragging her out of her house and burning her alive. This is actually a fun story about where the New Jersey Devil comes from.
Yep.
Just some lady living out in the woods with 12 kids, and she happens to be pregnant with the 13th. Probably a preacher's kid. Mm-hmm. And then guess what? It's the devil when it came out. It grew wings and flew the fuck off. And then they tried to murder her because her baby's a monster. And you're like, just tell the truth. I swear. Like, I know people are getting like poisoned by fucking wheat and like hallucinating and shit, because that's a real thing. Because that's what they blame the Salem witch trials on. But like, a lot of this is just plain old fucking hallucinations, and people just need to tell a story. They need drama. Like now, we need drama. They need something in their lives other than farming dirt and trying to live through the winter.
It is.
That's the end of the episode right there. Just vampires are made by dirt farmers and cruel assholes who want more land.
The high school teacher is sitting here going, how would I control this in a classroom?
This is why I don't have a degree, because I keep asking teachers with degrees. That's dumb as fuck. Why the fuck are they? Why is that a thing?
So you got a music teacher and a non-certified professor over here, just
oh god, if I had a
full
college
of movie
classroom,
references.
I would literally have a college classroom. Well, Mr. Morrison. No, it's just Morrison. Just say Morrison. Why are witches? Because people hate math and women. Okay, she figured out what 2 + X = Y, and she figured it out, and they murdered her.
Truth.
I'm lying. Algebra wasn't existed by then. The Muslims didn't create algebra till later on.
Who, if you had to choose any vampire movie to watch right now, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a fucking tough one, because there's so many. I don't know. Bram Stoker's Dracula with Keanu Reeves and Gary Oldman's fucking fantastic. A woman fucks a werewolf. Fucking Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder are married in that movie in real life.
Yes.
Yeah, they actually got married in real
Gary
life.
Oldman looks ripped as fuck in that movie with that fucking armor, that red armor, that wolf armor and shit. He looks scary as fuck. Whoever designed that made the sale with Jennifer Lopez and Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yes.
I'll say he's the best on-screen Dracula I've ever seen.
Yeah. There are some really good ones. The guy from the Netflix miniseries did a fantastic job. TV vampires are kind of hit or miss. You can't really make them scary.
Do I get to answer this question?
Yes, please. You're a vampire fan.
John Carpenter's vampires.
Ooh. The bad guy? The main bad guy? From
the one with James Woods.
Yeah, but the main bad guys... Oh, yeah. He's a cool goth-looking dude.
I love that
movie so much. He's that 90s goth with, like, the long black hair. And it's like, I got tickets to Manson.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Let's go.
I'm about to look up John Carpenter's Vampires.
It's such a good movie.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's
I never
one of those
saw
movies
it.
you shouldn't remake, like Tremors.
Yes.
Trying to find some of the...
fun fact, that might be something on the horizon. Me and Cristy reviewing Tremors and other favorite movies.
I love Tremors, dude.
I had a good idea.
Reba McEntire in her prime.
Yes. She was Reba McEntire to everybody's bullshit by the end of the movie.
Yeah. And that's why she left and wasn't in part 2.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at the images of the vampires from the John Carpenter movie, and they all look like they should come out of the movie The Crow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like if you think about vampire movies, let's say, what's the one? Fright Night.
Yeah.
Those things are fucking animals, dude. They got like 15 goddamn teeth on like just protruding out. And then the remake was fantastic with Anton Yelchin and Colin Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
Colin Farrell was the coolest Dracula, like coolest vampire. He's like one of those bros that like pump you up, like, dude, you looking sharp today, bro. Like, I love the Doug Martens. He's like, is that your girlfriend? That's awesome, man. I'm happy for you. And then like by the end of the movie, I'll rip your fucking throat out. It's just like.
Which movie is this?
Fright Night, the remake.
The remake. Gotcha.
Yeah, but like the original Fright Night was fantastic. They're legitimately scary, and I think one of the best vampire movies, other than Bram Stoker, would be Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot is legitimately just spine-tingling creepy. I don't know if you've ever seen this movie or read the book. The book is fucking rook.
The book.
But it's just like, hey Timmy, what's that? And it's his buddy.
Clawing at the window.
His childhood buddy. Clawed out the window. Let me in, buddy. I'm your best friend.
Because they can't come in the house unless you invite them.
Yeah, so he, like Stephen King wrote this book, another one of his coke-addled best books.
Another one where if you picked up the manuscript, powder would fall out of it.
Yeah, this is one of those
this
ones.
This is gonna be good.
This is one of those ones his wife picked out of the trash. Like, you dumb motherfucker, publish this.
Yeah.
This is like they're like Carrie, Cujo's, Pet Cemetery. This is his prime.
Yes.
And Salem's Lot is so underrated, and they've tried to remake it so many times, and they fail. Bonnie Bedelia is in it.
Yes.
Bonnie Bedelia is like, this is twice she's in a Stephen King movie, but it's such a good movie because it's legitimately creepy. Because in that story, the vampire is brought to town and put in a basement of it's a church, right? A defunct church, and it gets out. So like, this is basically a monster movie, but it's so well done.
Which version should I see?
The original, the guy from the Dukes of Hazzard was in it. Did that guy?
I think it's him.
The one with Bonnie Bedelia. Yeah, it's from the 80s. Just like any 80s horror. It's fantastic. It's over the top. Fucking. It's based on a Stephen King story. You can't fuck it up.
What about the Blade vampires where they have the big side protruding?
Oh, that's Blade 2.
Oh yeah,
when they become the viral vampires.
Yeah.
I love those. Like when you start getting into like the superhero story, they become kind of comic-y villains. I love Brad Dourif as a vampire. He's so cool. And the guy from fucking Grounded for Life, the dad, is just... That's the guy from Grounded for Life. That's like, a sitcom dad. You just made it to a vicious vampire.
And he rules in that movie.
Oh, he's the shit. He's like, I got my fucking hand back. And then he's like, loses it immediately. Hey, look at my hand, asshole. Just in Wesley Snipes' face. But
nothing's ever going to beat Wesley Snipes giving my favorite line in a Blade movie. After he kills the vampire, he's standing there with his knife, and then they zoom in, and you're thinking you're going to hear some amazing one-liner, and then it goes, some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. I'm like, welcome to something I say once a week.
Weird fucking analogy from Wesley Snipes, because that's the Wesley Snipes analogy.
Yes.
He probably said that to Woody Harrelson during White Man Can't Jump.
Yes.
That's what he said when the IRS sent him those letters.
Yeah. These motherfuckers. But like with those, like when you get into like the superhero genre, the horror aspect of vampires becomes kind of like a subgenre within it. A great one is Werewolf by Night, which was a Marvel Disney Plus thing. I don't know if you saw that. Great black and white. It's about all these monster hunters meeting at a mansion in the middle of the night, and they need a new leader. And they have to play a game in a maze to hunt this one monster, and it turns out to be Man-Thing, or the Marvel version of Swamp Thing. And if anybody knows anything about that fucking terrible goddamn creature, it sucks your soul out. But it's in a maze, and all these hunters have to go in this maze. Me and Alex did a review of it. It was really fun. There's werewolves in it, vampires in it. It's very well done, ghosts and shit. But it's a short little, I think it's like an hour and a half long movie that was just released on Disney Plus last Halloween. Werewolf by Night, fucking fantastic.
Everybody I've talked to that's into that kind of stuff loved it, so that's on my list for sure. Yeah. As far as vampires on TV, you have What We Do in the Shadows out
Those
as
are
well.
Fucking hilarious.
I fucking love that show.
I love her. She's like the woman is who I love the most because she's just so out of place.
Yes.
And she's like, I'm looking for Gregor, and she sees a guy who looked like him. But Gregor, the ghost she's talking, lived in the year 700 and bashed people's heads in with a hammer, like a giant war hammer. And she's like walking up to him, hello, Gregor. He's like, my name's Steve.
Yeah, he works at IT.
And he's like, I remember when you killed all them villages. And it's like, what the fuck, bitch?
What about the concept of having a familiar like the companion.
So that comes into the
vampire
Bram
lore.
Stoker's Dracula with the three wives. The three wives story, where there's three women from different villages, and they're basically it's not a harem, and they're not consorts. They're his wives basically. He's a polygamist, like a Mormon. So yeah, Mormons are vampires.
I mean,
by the transitive property, they are into transhumanism. I will say that.
So there are like legit parallels between vampires and Mormons to an extent.
But Mormons also, like when I say they believe in transhumanism, which is the elevation of humanity to like a higher being, that's truly what they fucking believe in. And vampires are a great version of that. I need to be something better, so let me become a vampire and live forever, because vampires do live forever unless you murder them, and you have to do it like a specific fucking way. There's so many rules to killing these goddamn things.
Especially when like True Blood kind of got further into like season 4, where they meet the old vampires. It's like, no, you got to kill them like this, and if you don't do it like this, it becomes the whole like shoot the proton torpedo in the 2 meters wide opening on the side of the Death Star.
Ugh, it's such a hassle. But, like going up from True Blood, but like another version is Dracula 2000, and that story, the origin story, Dracula is Judas.
Yep.
In that story,
what? Yes.
In that story, when Judas hangs himself, which is debatable in the Bible.
Yeah.
We don't know really what happens to him. He dies and his guts spill out all over the fucking place. But he gets turned into a vampire to live with the hey, you killed the savior of mankind. You did this. Your fate is to live forever in a world where he existed, and you destroyed that world because you killed him as a penance. And a cool fun fact that a buddy of mine pointed out when we first watched it was you can't catch him the same way twice. In Dracula 2000, you can only use the same trick once. So in one part, they set up these mirrors in an alley, and he corners Van Helsing. And then they put a silver-lined cage around him and put him in a coffin. But guess what? You can't do that again, because he knows the trick. And that's the thing about him, like, you can only use the same trick once. Cool concept. This is all concept stuff, which I love about vampires, because you can play the concept game, and it's hit or miss. Twilight is a version of a miss. Okay, yeah, I get it, they're hyper violent, but like they twinkle. Shut the fuck up. give them some makeup, they'll be fine. Yeah. But with werewolves, there's not a lot of liberty taken with those. Those are very straightforward. A good version of this is Dog Soldiers.
Oh, God.
Yeah, great movie.
Great movie.
But, like, hey, we've intentionally infected these guys to become werewolves and soldiers. Cool concept. But that's about as far as you can go. The other version of this is Silver Bullet. It's someone in the town. Because that's the cool story about werewolves. You only need one. You don't need a whole goddamn bunch of them, because that's worse. That makes it worse. But it's the werewolf by night. It's this someone in the group doesn't quite fit, and we need to figure out who.
And then Gary Busey shows up.
Yeah. And hey, my little wheelchair-bound nephew, I'm going to put a M16 on your fucking wheelchair.
Yeah.
And we're going to light this preacher the fuck up. And the cool thing about like werewolf movies, every time there's a hallucination or a dream sequence, like the fucking Sopranos, and it just goes off the fucking rails. My favorite dream sequence was the one in American Werewolf in London, where he sees Nazi werewolves bust in the door and just like, dude, you're smoking the wrong shit, man. You need to relax. You're gonna die soon. You know that, right? Because you're a wolf man.
That's the thing about that one that doesn't happen in any werewolf movies, is when the guy gets bit and knows that he got bit and he can't go back, is the hallucinations that he sees. You don't really get anything like that in any other werewolf
so
werewolf
like it's
movies.
the same hallucination in Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
I'm bound to this person that died because of me. Another movie that's not so great, but I fucking love it, is American Werewolf in Paris.
Oh, no.
This is a weird-ass movie. Like, it's a legitimately weird-ass movie. But he's hallucinating his dead friend, who he clawed to death as a werewolf. And the only reason he's a werewolf is because he got bit during a weird, like, rave when he was in France. And they're stuck in France. They can't leave because there's a group hunting him. But that all plays together in, like, the Underworld series, which is probably the most in-depth when it comes to, like, a combination of the two. And I do like the fact that the Underworld series doesn't muddle the line, and by adding like a whole paddock of fucking other monsters.
I know that's kind of what happened with True Blood, where you got like fairies and
people that morph, like people that can transmute into like dogs or horses,
shapeshifters.
Yeah, fucking lame.
They just got like all of the cryptids and it's like Shrek after a while.
Yeah. Well, Supernatural, what I liked was they set up kind of a neighborhood system where, hey, in this part of the world, vampires are big. In this part of the world, in this dynamic, in this upper class, these group of people here. Hey, there's a family of motherfuckers who live on the hill who have been in business since the 1700s. And that plays into the Frankenstein mythos. Or it really plays perfect in Supernatural until everything kind of goes off the rails when it's just like, I get it, you slapped God in the mouth. You can't really go any higher than that. So you beat the devil like 14 fucking times. Eventually, we have to stop writing shows.
Yeah.
And we need you guys to be in the Batman movies.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. We can only play so much classic rock and keep paying these guys.
Man, you got to keep building franchises. That's what it's for, to milk all that money.
Yeah, I would have loved a crossover with Harley, like the Vampire Diaries of the originals, and him just murdering all them motherfuckers.
Well, that was one of the things I liked. Jensen Ackles said that at one of the Comic-Cons.
Yeah,
because they were talking about it, the two sets of actors, and they said, we think that to end the Vampire Diaries series, it should just be an episode where they pan away from whatever the guys are talking about, and it shows the Impala pulling up in somebody's driveway, and it cuts off, and the doors open, and then they close, and then it just fades to black, and that's the end of the series.
Yeah. See, that's fun. That's the fun part. We kind of stepped away from werewolves and Dracula a little bit. Cap had brought up mummies. Those are always fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because the best mummy movie has already been made.
Yes.
With Tom Cruise.
Hey!
No, that trash fire was awful. Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of threw me for a loop a little bit because Russell Crowe is such a good actor.
I know.
And you did that. You know who would have been great? Crispin Glover. Because that dude is scary as fuck in real life. Just tell me Crispin Glover couldn't do that whole change over time. It's like, hey, I'm Dr. Jekyll. How you doing? No, I'm Mr. fucking Hyde. You want to buy some heroin tonight? Like, that's the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a lot of mummy portrayals outside of, like, say, the Brendan Fraser series or like even the old one. It is a fun movie.
It made The Rock famous, man.
I saw both of those movies in theaters. Like, I saw The Rock become famous in a movie theater.
Yeah, and bad CGI, like legitimately
terrible
even
CGI at the end.
Even for the time, it's just like they tried him into a giant scorpion, but. That's his stepping stone, man. One of the greatest actors. Hold on. One of the famous actors.
Right. He's kind of like today's Arnold Schwarzenegger in a lot of ways.
He's star. He does kids movies too.
Yeah.
He did his kindergarten cop movie. You know what I'm saying?
It's weird. Like as a kid, with the idea of the mummy always fascinated me because I was really into Egyptian lore at the time too.
So there is actually like in not even modern day, like in the 1800s, early 1900s, the joke that is Egyptian culture is fascinating. It even plays its path in
the joke that is Egyptian culture.
It is because you're taking a legitimate civilization that spans all timeline of human existence, and then on top of that, they have a prehistory about themselves before that. Because like people are like, oh, this is what I hate, and I think it's kind of like a racist undertone when they say it. When they said aliens built the pyramids. No, Africans built the pyramids, folks. That's the stance. Africans, people from Africa, built the goddamn pyramids.
How many sides does it have?
Yeah, it's 5. But aliens didn't build the goddamn pyramids. Okay, that's.
Wait,
aliens
Chris,
didn't build the fucking pyramids.
That's not what I heard.
No, it was built by craftsmen and slaves.
You mean that thing I read on the internet was not true at all?
Maybe. I'm not on TikTok with the fake history pop. Oh, that is infuriating. Seeing some dumb bitch get on, and this is not gender specific.
Here we go.
But just some dumb bitch getting on telling me that Rome didn't exist. I'm just like, Oh God, I've never wanted to hit the fucking glasses off a woman's face so fucking hard.
Oh no, this is where we are in.
Yeah, this is where we are.
In
I just
life
saw
right now.
someone using video footage of a movie to prove that flat Earth exists. So it's fantastical.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Rome does not exist?
To this one white bitch, no. Yeah, right. That's what I said. And then
And my next guest is Kyrie Irving. We're about to talk about the Earth.
so Mr. Irving, Meta World Peace called you a bitch. But no, like the pyramids were built by people.
Yeah.
Period. The Bible even talks about a certain group of people who built the pyramids because you know why? It took forever to build the goddamn pyramids.
Yeah.
And guess what? Egypt, not a race thing. It was ruled by everybody at some point. Mm-hmm. You know, Cleopatra, white as fucking snow because she's Macedonian. Guess what? King Tut was probably fucking Arab. And before that, it was probably a sub-Saharan African who was in charge. And then it just keeps changing hands. Because it's a civilization.
In
the cradle of civilization that we learned in school.
Yes.
Unless they stop teaching that shit.
I was always fascinated by like the mummification process, where like everything they had to do, to prep the body for like
And you know what the great thing about that is? That's not an original idea. Like people have this what's called concurrent ideas around the world. Hey, why are there pyramids in Machu Picchu in Central America? Why are there pyramids in Southern Asia? I don't know, because they all lived around the same part of the world called the equator. It doesn't go above 85 degrees. It's comfortable living. The water's clean. Oh, and that's the best way to stack rocks.
and dead bodies.
And dead bodies. Hey, we want to preserve the image of our people. That's what they do. Mummification happens naturally if you don't fuck with a dead body long enough. If you just douse it in saltpeter, that's what it does. Ed Gein was really good at this shit. And guess what? He was just an illiterate asshole living in Wisconsin.
Oh man, what if we had like a mummy's tomb for Ed Gein with all the body parts in his place?
Oh yeah, just him and Mary Hogan just fucking bebopping down the street, like with his nipple belts and his lampshades, and talking about how he's really cool about the Nazis.
Yeah, he was really cool about a lot of
things.
He
was really cool about that one woman, his mom. But like. It's a simple application to mummify somebody. They have a very unique one where it's wrapping. But dude, tribes in tribal people in Northern Europe would put them in tar pits, or leave them out into the ice, kind of like what we do with people in Mount Everest. Just leave them.
Just leave them.
People near the rainforest had ceremonies where they would put them in. Out towards bogs. Mm-hmm. They would you would pick certain ages, and you would just lead you out into a bog.
Yeah,
they would dress you up really nice, feed you a specific meal, and then they would lead you out into this bog, and you would just sink.
Yeah, that's
and
where
it
we
would
get
preserve
you. That's where we get the bog person.
Yep,
which is a mummified corpse that was discovered.
Mm-hmm.
All these creatures that we've talked about come back from the dead and are all cursed.
Yeah. And there's some deep-seated weird thing about every fucking one of them. Mm-hmm. The Salem witch trial is the same thing. Mm-hmm. I need her to be a witch. Why? Because she's got the best part of the town in her name. Or I need this guy's land. I'm going to call him a witch. And why they don't use the word wizard bothered me as a kid for some reason. Like you have witches with witch trials, but at no time did they say like a man was a wizard. They just called him a witch too. I'm just like, I thought these were very gender specific. Like they're not.
I don't think the gender specific thing showed up until Harry Potter.
Yeah, what an asshole.
No, I think that showed up later.
They have a great version of vampires in their fucking books. They're very brutal because they kill like a young girl like at the end of the books. That is kind of prominent in the books, and then it's just like, oh no, she was murdered and ate by a fucking werewolf.
Wait, there were vampires in the Harry Potter series?
Yeah, they were part of the evil group of assholes with that no-nose motherfucker, Ray Fiennes. He plays a great villain.
Yeah.
By the way, Ray Fiennes would be a great werewolf Nazi. Man, he would be fucking slick.
He would be a great werewolf, Nazi, mummy, detective.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, him and Christoph Waltz just bebopping down the street.
I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. We need Inglourious Bastards 2 to kind of sage these things.
Oh, bless.
But
Rob Zombie writes the soundtrack.
Yeah. But like a werewolf movie, what would you say would be a go-to werewolf movie? I know it's kind of hard because it's either The Howling or American
Yeah, it's
Werewolf.
only like a couple.
Or Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm gonna throw you a curveball. Blood and Chocolate.
Okay, yeah, that's a fun one. But that kind of changes the concept too.
What is Blood and Chocolate?
It's kind of it started out as a young adult novel and it turned into a movie. I'm a Hugh Dancy fan. It's a Hugh Dancy movie.
Okay.
It's in France, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's France. Hugh Dancy is a struggling writer, a struggling artist, and he's from America, and he goes over to Paris. And
he's struggling so much he afforded a plane ticket to another goddamn country.
Yeah, and he
must be starving.
Yeah, he's in the middle of.
Right?
He's in the no, it's the recent
Like mid 2000s.
Yeah, mid 2000s. He's in the middle of town, and sees this girl come by. She's gorgeous. He decides he's gonna go talk to her.
Obviously.
Yeah, come to find out, her and her whole entire family are werewolves and have been for hundreds of years.
This is the plot line of American Werewolf in Paris too, except it's a rave that Blade didn't show up to and murder everyone.
And she does that thing where she's like, no, you can't fall in love with me. My whole family's wolves and it's gonna be bad. And I'm telling you, don't fall in
It's
love
Twilight
with
with
me.
better writing.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I don't care.
I love your soul.
Yeah, whatever.
No, he's like, I've got a bad history. My family's crazy too, and I ran away from them. And trust me, it's okay. And she's like, no, my family's a different kind of crazy.
That's when the whole measuring of trauma kind of really comes in handy.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I had a bad father and a mother had abandoned me before I was born and all this shit. And it's just like, that's cool. I was in a concentration camp. And it's like, see, one of those things don't line up with the other. See, one of those things are very fucking bad, and one is just a trivial fucking problem.
One of the things I like about it is their transitions they go from human beings to actual wolves.
Oh.
It's not the Howling.
It's not like they're on their hind legs and been like giving you the finger.
Are they like
cursed?
Are they like CGI wolves or just like live wolves with like voice actors? Just kind of.
There was
They don't even talk. They're just actual wolves.
yeah, a lot of practical effects go into that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh hell, there's my girlfriend. Come here, buddy. Like just a wolf comes up. It's just like, hi.
Yeah, but like it's
Yeah, pretty much.
But another subgenre of this was the teenage vampire or the teenage werewolf. You know, fucking Michael J. Fox as Teen Wolf. It's such a fun movie because they still use practical effects. When Michael J. Fox turns into a wolf, it's kind of scary looking because his bones break and snap, and you know he looks weird as fuck. First of all, he's very well groomed, but like, because I think it's because he's so small, for one.
Right. Michael J. Fox was like 5 foot,
5'2", I think,
something like that.
just small to the ground.
Always looked like a teenager.
Always, forever. And then you had the teenage vampire movies like Buffy. So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the show, but I'm a bigger fan of the movie because the movie is batshit insane.
Yes.
And she has not done anything. The girl that played Buffy didn't do jack and shit after that movie, and everyone in it is perfect.
That's another one that I've missed out on. That's like
Goddamn
the one
Cap.
franchise that everybody loves that I have missed out on since I've gotten into all this shit.
You know, that would be a good time to reboot that series. I think it would be prime time to redo a Buffy series, but keep it set in the 90s, just reboot it. Sarah Michelle Gellar shows up as the devil.
I think it would be cool to see them redo it, but redo it like for nowadays and let Sarah Michelle Gellar come, because she hadn't done anything since. Let her come back as like the original, and let her make her cameo appearance as the
And
original.
Nick Cage as Dracula.
Yes.
I mean, he won't turn down anything at this point. There's like
I've heard Renfield is fantastic.
I have too. I don't know if
I want to see Renfield because Renfield is a familiar in the book, but in this one it's a modern day where Renfield is like, I want to quit my goddamn job working for Dracula because he's an ass. But Nick Cage's Dracula looks fun. It's fun.
I always think of the Tom Waits Renfield in that
Oh yeah.
in the Gary Oldman Dracula movie.
Yeah.
Just Tom Waits being himself.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Yeah.
I eat bugs.
And just strumming along. I got spiders in my blood.
Pretty much.
Yeah, man. Your life sucks. I get it. It's fucking awful. But like, going back to the mummy part, like what people don't realize is, and this could probably be a whole episode, but like in a history part of this, people were so fascinated with mummies that they kept digging them the fuck up and selling pieces of them, like kind of like what is it called at the end of the museum? Gift shop bullshit. That's what it was. It's like, oh, I got a mummy's toad and all this other bullshit. And then it came into play with Mormonism when he was coming up with that shit.
It's always the Mormons or the Nazis.
Yeah, it's always the Mormons. Dude, people that changed the world, man. Changed the fucking world. All right? You can't say they didn't.
God.
You can't say they didn't. What is Mormonism but the Third Testament? Okay?
Third Testament.
It is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it is. You don't have to throw shit at me. It's true. You know, it's not like Andrew Jackson said, we need to kill them now. But
I'm about to turn into some of the new kids and start throwing a phone at you.
But there were presidents who did not like the Mormons. But, you know, that kind of plays into the whole story of, you know, how do we function going forward with not pulling stories from the back end. You know, we need these stories to create the new monsters coming around. And I kind of like the way horror's going now. The last 2 years of horror movies are fantastic if you get the chance to watch them, because it's all original concepts. They're not going back and doing vampires and werewolves and mummies, or Universal trying to create a fucking universe of their bullshit with Tom Cruise and Russell Crowe.
It's like it's mostly TV with all that now, with vampires and werewolves.
Yeah, and before, like, I will say this, before Supernatural, there was Buffy, but there's also another show called Charmed.
Yes!
I'm a grown-ass man, but guess what? When I was a teenager, I fucking loved Charmed. You know why? Because Rose McGowan was hot.
Say Rose McGowan, Nev Campbell.
No,
right?
not Nev Campbell. It was Rose McGowan. It was that bitch from Beverly Hills. This is 90210.
That's right.
Yeah, the mean
I'm
one.
surrounded by men.
There was one called Piper. She was the short one. And then there was Alyssa Milano. She was the hot one. And then Rose McGowan showed up as like the bastard sister. Like, oh yeah, your dad has a side piece. Like,
who am I thinking of that had Nev Campbell in it?
I don't know.
Was it Pretty Little Liars? What?
No,
that's what I'm thinking.
That's a newer show, but Scream. Nev Campbell. Scream. That's all Nev Campbell.
I thought that was a TV show too.
No, she was in Wild Things, but
she was in Wild Things.
Yeah, but with those shows, you know, they showed vampires and werewolves and stuff like that. And you talk about budgeted, you know, budget fucking graphic CGI and stuff like that.
Like 90s TV. Shannon Doherty is what I'm thinking of.
A real bitch on wheels. But yeah.
Then, let me see.
Alyssa Milano, Shannon Doherty, and I can't remember the third one's name.
Oh, the guy from Nip Tuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fucking show.
Oh, you guys want to talk about Nip Tuck real quick? We got another 5 hours.
I was going to say.
You want to talk about True Blood be up porn?
Oh, God.
FX had you. Hey, we're on the cable package, motherfucker. Your parents don't need HBO or Showtime.
You want to see Jillian McMahon's just bare ass.
Yeah. You know, people get cut the fuck up and bled out every day.
Let's see. Kaylee Cuoco was in Charmed.
Yeah, probably as a child.
Probably.
But back in those days, you know, back in the 90s, those were the shows. And I remember one show that came out that pissed my great-grandma off. It was a soap opera that had werewolves and vampires in it called Passions.
I remember that. Oh, my God.
I forgot about
And she was like, what the fuck is this bullshit? Smoking a cigarette and just like, this is terrible. Let's go back to watching Days of Our Lives. I'm like, yes, Grandma. I got to know what happens to that guy. That's the problem I have in my mind is like I watched soap operas when I was 8. So I'm really big into storytelling. As convoluted as it is, I'm a raconteur. You got to tell me a story, man. Well, what
soap operas and pro wrestling.
What do you think? Do you think like nowadays that telling the stories of vampires and werewolves and stuff, it kind of has any prevalence in like the story and like going forward? Because like we've seen some massive changes. We had that whole zombie era, which was fucking lame.
I think it's everything's a cycle with vampires. If it's not vampires, it's zombies. If it's not zombies, it's vampires, and to lesser extents, werewolves and mummies. It's the fear of not knowing what happens after you die.
Yeah.
And with vampires, it's sexy. With Zombies, it's your brain is dead and you're just feeding off living people. With werewolves, you become an animal. It's just like, all these scenarios of what could happen if you die in the worst possible ways.
Yeah. I just don't see that going forward much. Kind of like
I think it'll always be around.
Oh, yeah, it'll always be around. But I think we're never going to get back to that heyday of like The Howling or Bram Stoker's Dracula. We're not going to have those kind of films anymore because
it's all been done.
I hope I'm fucking wrong.
I am really too, but it's like a lot of things as I get older. It's one of those things that makes me jaded as I get older. It's like I've seen this.
Yeah.
I kind of hope that you're wrong too, but I also think that because I was thinking that too, and then somebody got on my phone and said you have to watch a show called Midnight Mass.
Fuck yeah. That's the best kind of horror. It's not like, you know what makes Midnight Mass great? It's not even the vampire part. Spoiler alert. But it's not the vampire part. It's the Catholic part. The Catholic part's what's scary. Because when he starts going off the rails toward the last episode and talking about the army of God, yeah, now we got some real monsters showing the fuck up in plain sight.
For real.
Now, granted, he pulled a fucking tent preacher and made a girl walk from the wheelchair. But deep down, it's just like, we need to be soldiers of God.
Yes.
Nah, bro. That's that real terror.
With guns and tanks and
with
shit.
guns and tanks. Yeah, with torches and rifles.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would love to come back to this subject, kind of go into the next one, probably ghouls and zombies on the next mythical part of this, the mythical creatures. I think that'd be a fun episode because ghouls don't get portrayed correctly at all.
Ooh, does this mean we get to talk about those crazy people up in New York that took the bones out of the people in the
the bone
funeral
farmers.
home?
Yeah, the bone farmers. There was actually we'll talk about it again, but there was a young man in Georgia who ran a funeral home. And just buried empty caskets and kept dead bodies on his property in cars and freezers, and it's just like, you could have just buried them. But he just had them around. He was in Georgia. Keep that in mind, folks. In the Georgia Delta.
I was like Georgia, Tennessee. There was like the body farm and all that too.
Yeah, he probably sold them to some guy who was really, hey, that's neat. Let me get one of those.
It's a big market in the South, as it turns out.
It's a big market for a dead body. Well, folks, we're going to end it there. Before we have a new section on the Couch Potatoes. I got to ask, because we're the Cryptid Conspiracy cult, and there's a little conspiracy in this one. The government said aliens exist recently. What are your thoughts on that, real quick?
I love just the non-reaction from the general public about
fantastic.
all this.
I fucking love that.
I do too. I've been on TikTok forever, and I love that every once in a while I'll be going through my For You page and it'll be like somebody pretending to be the government and say, hey, you guys, aliens are real. And then it'll be like the general public saying, great. What are you going to do about how high the taxes are? What are you going to do about student loans? What are you going to do about this? What about the cost of living? And then it'll say, you guys, aliens are real. It's like, oh God.
It's like, it's been a rough few years, man. The aliens is nothing.
My biggest what it was like when I first heard it, it's like, oh, that's cool. I'm working 6 days this week, so if we can meet up to record another day so I can fucking sleep. Yeah, aliens and whatnot. Yeah, sure. But me and Alex talked about it. I said, he didn't show me proof. He didn't bring me the skull of a fucking alien. So, like, unless he starts doing that shit and we start seeing shit come from the sky, I'm not going to care.
Is it aliens, or did they say unidentified flying objects?
It was a non-terrestrial craft with non-human biologics inside. One guy said this. That's it. And at no point during that fucking congressional hearing, by the way, no photos, no video, just, hey, the CIA is lying to you. Well, I fucking know that. I know the CIA is lying to me. I know what they put in the fucking Cheerios.
I've been hearing this for like decades.
Yeah, I know what they put in the goddamn Fruit Loops. I know. You don't have to lie to me. I know what Kellogg is all about.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Kellogg's.
Ooh.
Enjoy Fruit Loops and don't touch yourself. But with that, it's part of the news part. I had to bring it up because we haven't recorded. I recorded right before it came out, and
you were just like, God damn it!
I missed the perfect opportunity to release a perfect episode about aliens and just talk about this drivel.
I want to know Tyler's thoughts on it now. He's just probably like, whatever, dude. I've known this for years.
Yeah. Tell me about the Anunnaki again, and why people didn't build the pyramids or the Great Wall or whatever the fuck.
And why the Earth is flat, and
Yeah, I about came across that fucking table. But everybody knows the Earth is a spheroid, a ball.
I shot some.
I'm confused about all of it.
Yeah, so that's the fun thing about doing this show. Get confused. No answers.
That's what you get the spheroids for. You just pump that shit up, and it makes you dumber.
Yep. All right, folks. Everybody, thanks for listening. We'll be back again with a great few episodes of History We Forgot.
Yep.
And Cap, it's great to have you back. Hope to have you again sometime.
Yeah, man. I want to do it again soon.
Fuck yeah. Listen to all the shows on the network. We've got a brand new show through the Something Good Network. Check it out with Mikey Black and Dante. And let us know in the Discord. Check it out. Everything's in there if you want to get a hold of us with any ideas you may have. Thank you guys for coming in.
You've been listening to the Something Good Network. If you liked what you heard, you can follow us on Instagram, and check out the other great shows on the network. Link is in the episode description.